Good evening, folks. Do you know, I forgot what day it was then. Is it Thursday today? It is Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, I have to keep reminding myself. So happy Thursday. I hope you've had a good day today. Hope you've been enjoying some fresh air and sunshine and freedom. Um, I've had a lovely day today with my children. I went for a bike ride, first time in quite a while, with my lad. We went up some hills, which was good. A good little workout, and it's good to speed down the other side afterwards. So, we've got Jackie Albert here with us today, all the way from Spain. Not very sunny Spain today, I'm told. And she is going to talk to us about mindfulness and yoga. She's a mindfulness and yoga teacher, and give us some tips and also do a guided practice at the end. Before we get Jackie into the studio, I need to tell you, quite excitingly, that I can now offer some of my mental health first aid courses online via Zoom. So the first one is going to be the half-day mental health aware course, which gives you really good grounding in what mental health is, how we can look after our own mental health and support others who are experiencing mental health issues. Talks about stress, how to manage stress, how to spot the signs of various mental health issues like anxiety, depression, self-harm, psychosis, suicidal ideation. So it's a really good course. It's packed, lots of stuff packed into round about 4 hours. So the first one is going to be next Friday, which is the 17th of April from 1 p.m. till 5 p.m. So if you fancy it, special offer, only £75 instead of the recommended retail price of £125. Give me an email, info@pathlight.org.uk, or just send me a message on Facebook or on here, whatever you want to do, and I will tell you how to join. So that'll be really cool next week, next Friday, 17th. So without further ado, we will get Jackie into the studio, and if you have any questions that you want to ask Jackie or any comments on what you're hearing, feel free to type a comment. If you want us to know what your name is as you type a comment, you need to go to this link here. Don't worry if you can't be bothered, it's not a problem. And without further ado, we will invite Jackie in, all the way from not sunny Spain. Hello, Jackie.
Hi. Hello. Hello. Hello.
How are you
Hi.
doing?
I'm good, and thank you for having me here. I feel quite privileged to be able to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's very kind of you for your time and expertise.
Mm-hmm.
So, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Okay, sure. So my name's Jackie. I'm from London originally, but I've been living in Spain for the last 7.5 years. I'm actually not where I live at present. I'm lucky in this feel very privileged that I am in the mountains in southern Spain, in a very beautiful remote place, living out this time. But normally I live in the city of Valencia, which is a very sunny Eastern Mediterranean city. And in my previous life in London and England, I worked in the NHS for about 12 years as a speech and language therapist. And then, owing to a big life change, I moved to Spain quite suddenly and trained up as a mindfulness and yoga teacher, where I've been running mindfulness courses and teaching yoga for the last 5, nearly 6 years now. Yeah.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So would you say mindfulness and yoga is a passion for you?
Yes, definitely. So I first came across, I've been doing yoga since I was 18. I started doing yoga at university. A friend invited me to go a day. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about it. And years ago, so it wasn't such a big thing. And I kept going because of the teacher. The teacher was this lady. She must have been about 70. And she just, I think more than anything, she made me feel, I felt really good being in her presence. And I always remember listening to her. She would do readings at the end of the class. And I always loved that. that part of the class, and that was it. And then I've been doing yoga ever since. Yeah. And mindfulness as well. I discovered it really in about 2011, and I was very, very drawn to it. Very, very drawn to it. There was some kind of inner knowing that this was really important and something I had to explore and find out more about. Yeah. So, yeah, I feel very passionate about them, which is why I train to teach. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great when your passion can become your job, as I can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Aye, okay. So, I know there are lots. I suppose there's different types of yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose there's different types of mindfulness as well. Different types of meditation.
Yeah.
Is there a kind of specific type of yoga or a specific type of mindfulness that you practice and teach yourself?
Mm-hmm. So I think with yoga, what people call hatha yoga is a sort of umbrella term for physical yoga. So yoga is known in the West very much for its sort of physical part, but actually it's a very deep spiritual practice and path, of which the physical part, which is what most people do in the West, is known for. And so hatha yoga refers to that, the physical aspect of yoga. There's also a breathing practice, there's also ethical practices, there's also a meditation practice. So there's lots of different practices that come under the umbrella term of yoga, and then hatha yoga is physical yoga. So I teach the physical part of yoga. And when I trained, I dabbled in the other, what are known as the 8 limbs of yoga, so the other parts of yoga. It's a very fascinating tradition. For me, it's very strict. There's a very strict spiritual tradition to follow. And while I was drawn to lots of different aspects of it, apart from the physical side of it, when I came across mindfulness, I felt it suited me and my lifestyle more. I know some very strict yogis who go very deep into their practice, and you know, I'm sure it's wonderful, but for me, it's not very compatible with the kind of lifestyle I lead. And I think for me, mindfulness is a little bit more of a middle way. So it's a little bit more fits more with sort of the culture that we live in. And so within mindfulness is mindfulness comes from the term sati, which is a Sanskrit term which means to remember. And it's the central practice of Buddhism. So it's been around for 2,500 years or more. And really, in its essence, it's just a practice. It doesn't really belong to anything or anyone. It's a practice about being present, about being here. And so when we talk about being present, that can mean different things. And when we study in the secular mindfulness world, so I teach a secular mindfulness course, so it's not tied to any particular spiritual or religious practice. We talk about being present in terms of the body. So being present with how you're feeling in the body, with your body sensations. We talk about being present and using the breath as a sort of doorway to presence and to being here and now. And we talk about being present with your thoughts and with your emotions. And then you can also practice in other ways. So you can be present with the exterior world as well. So with sounds or with what you're seeing, with touch, through touch. But it's all through the senses. So it's very much a sort of sensory experience of a direct sensory experience of the world is what I would, how I would kind of summarize it in a way. And in a sense, it's both very easy and simple. So it's very simple. Anybody, anywhere can do it. Doesn't matter what your background is, what your age is. You know, I've seen it done. I've worked with schools in Spain, and I've seen a teacher doing it with 3-year-olds. So, I mean, anyone can do it, really. But it's also quite difficult because it's hard to remember to do it. This is where it's interesting that it's related to this term sati, which means to remember, because it's about remembering to come back to being present. So a lot of the time, especially in the Western world, we very much live in our heads. So what I mean by that is we sort of live in our thoughts, or we live on what we call in the mindfulness world automatic pilot. So I'm sure you're all familiar with that, with the experience of you get in the car or maybe some other form of transport, and you go from A to B and you arrive at your destination and you have no idea how you got there. So you can't remember how you got there because you were in your automatic pilot world. So this is very useful. Automatic pilot is useful for us. We wouldn't be able to walk if we didn't have automatic pilot. But as in this kind of culture and society we live in, the balance has tipped. So we're sort of a little bit out of balance. So we've moved from spending maybe 80 or 90% of our time every day in an automatic pilot place. So not being present with ourselves, with what's happening around us, with the person in front of us, with what we're doing, with how we're feeling. And we're in an automatic pilot. So we're just sort of in this state of, in our thoughts, in our head. And this can lead to a lot of stress. Yeah. And if you have physical pain or chronic pain, it can make that worse. If you have difficulties with low mood or depression, it can also make that worse. And so mindfulness is for me, it's almost, I would now call it a kind of a life skill almost. It's a tool as well as a practice for me, for a person to learn how to live in a way that they're more present and less in this place of automatic pilot. So John Kabat is the founder of the mindfulness-based stress reduction course, which is probably one of the most well-known mindfulness courses. And he translated in a very simple way the Buddhist practices to be accessible for anyone. So it does come from Buddhism, and he calls it when we are able to live in a being mode. So we're human beings, but we've almost become human doings. When we move into this way of living where we are more being, so we are less in our heads and more in our bodies. And then this is a doorway into healing. And healing can mean lots of different things. So it can mean healing because you will have some kind of disease, or it can mean healing from difficult emotions, or it can mean different things to different people. But it's one of my favorite quotes from John Kabat-Zinn. So I've run over 40 courses since I've started teaching. I'm a mindfulness teacher trainer, so I train other teachers with the Mindful Academia school based in Spain, an international school. And I have seen countless people from all walks of life and all different places pass through and gain some kind of benefit from learning how to practice mindfulness. And one of the great things about the courses I offer and the courses on offer relating to mindfulness is that it's very practical. So there is some theory, and the theory is interesting if you like theory and useful, but it's really practice based. And I can't tell you the amount of people that I have met in my career who've said to me, I can't meditate. I can't do it. My mind's too busy. I can't make my mind empty, blank. And that's, it's almost, I can't wait to have that, to hear that, because one of the key things I do as a mindfulness teacher is I teach people how to do it. So everybody can meditate. it's not that difficult. There is no wrong way to do it, which is also one of the reasons why I love mindfulness as a meditation practice, is because you can't get it wrong. It's just not possible. It's just a practice after all. So however you're doing it is just how you're doing it, because mindfulness means also being with what is. So if what is I can't do it, then that's just what is in that moment. So there's this once you start to practice mindfulness and become more experienced at it, you do start to step into this place of a deeper acceptance of what is, a sense of allowing for what is, and a sense of sort of joining with life and allowing life to flow. And one sort of starts to flow more with life as well. So I think a lot of and this comes directly from Buddhist teachings, a lot of the suffering in the world is due to our resistance to what is, to us wanting things to be different than how they are. So it might be on a physical level, it might be emotionally, it might be a situation in our life. And some of these situations and things can be deeply deeply sad or incredibly difficult, things like grieving, illness, death. And I'm not trying to take away from the seriousness of that, but there is something about mindfulness that can allow us to move towards what's difficult and meet it in a different way. And that in and of itself can change our experience. So it doesn't mean we won't feel pain and we won't suffer and we won't find things difficult and situations won't be difficult. It's much more about how we relate to ourselves, our lives, the difficult of experiences. And I think mindfulness becomes, in that way, mindfulness becomes a life skill, in that it teaches us how to do that in a way that is more and more beneficial to us. And also, for me, it very much allows for a deeper connection with life.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that, Jackie. It's really interesting, and I think it's definitely a skill. Acceptance for me is the key part of it. So acceptance, if you've got thoughts going through your mind, there's this misconception I think a lot of people have that I can't do mindfulness, I can't do meditation because thoughts keep popping into my mind. But that's what the mind does, and it doesn't mean like you're doing it wrong. That's just what is. And it's about accepting, acknowledging, and then just bringing it back to the anchor, whether it's your breath or just that state of being. I see mindfulness personally as a state of being. Yeah, so I wonder if you could explain how you personally practice mindfulness. So teaching, not when you're doing a course, but what is your actual physical practice? How does it work with you?
Okay, so I started meditating in 2011. I came to meditation, something I wanted to mention earlier when you asked me about my journey, but maybe I'll mention it now if that's okay. But I came to it through a personal crisis. So I very much sort of had something happen in my life, which was very upsetting. And I was also at a place in my career where I wasn't happy. And I fell into a crisis, not my first. I've had a few since. And I fell very hard. It was very hard. It was very tough. It was very deep. And my response to it, and I don't really know why I had this response, but my response was to start meditating. And I got up every day. I couldn't sleep, because I also became an insomniac during the crisis. And so I was awake every day from like 4 a.m, 5 a.m, before work started at 9. Didn't know what to do. And I got up and I sat down and I started meditating. And I picked up a book. I didn't know anything about meditation. I just found a book online and read it and followed what the book told me to do. It wasn't mindfulness. It was a different type of meditation, but it was still very useful. And I started to do it. And during the course of that practice, my mind started to go silent and quiet. And in the course of that period of time, so that lasted for about 3 months, and I did it for half an hour a day, twice a day, as if my life depended on it. And I think it did. And my mind would go quiet, and it was the only refuge I found from the pain and the difficulty I was going through, which was really tough. But it was sort of the start of a journey, and quite quickly after that, I'd sort of then decided after a few months that I should maybe go and try a class and learn to meditate. And after a couple of sort of missteps, I came across mindfulness. And I did a short course, and I remember going to sit in the park, and I think I don't remember what time of year it was, but it was sunny. So I was sitting in the park in central London. And I remember the instruction was to go and do something and practice the mindfulness. And I bought an ice cream on a cone. And I remember sitting and eating it with mindful awareness. And it was the best ice cream I've ever eaten in my whole life. So this gives you maybe a clue of how to practice. So as I said, one of the things I love about the course that I teach, and also just in general how to practice mindfulness, is that there's a formal sense of practice where you sit on a cushion or a chair, or maybe you lie down and you practice with your eyes closed or open, and maybe from a guided meditation, or maybe you've learned how to guide yourself. And you do that in a formal way, so what we call a sitting practice. And that's the way I practice every day. So at the moment, with all this that's happening in the world, I have found myself on a retreat by mistake, with quite a lot of not much work and a lot of time. So I'm practicing 2 or 3 times a day, which is wonderful. But I've done a lot of retreats, so I know how to do that, and I know how to run that for myself and how to deal with it. But if you're someone who doesn't have that level of experience, just a 15 to 20 minute sitting practice a day can be a really good way to start. And it can be very simple, so it can be watching the breath. There's a great app called Insight Timer. It's one of a few really good apps that offer guided meditations. There's also lots of stuff available online. But if you're interested in trying it out, try to find a well-known mindfulness teacher. So there's lots of other ways to meditate out there. And I'm not saying I want to tell anyone what they should or shouldn't do. But if you're interested in mindfulness, I would recommend sticking to it. So again, if you chose something different, I would also recommend sticking to that. I do believe, and I do have quite a deep spiritual practice myself, that by following one route is often a way to go a little bit deeper with that route, depending on what that route is. But I do think it's more useful. I think if you chop and change a lot and try different things, you end up getting a little bit lost, and a little bit you don't really feel like you're getting anywhere. Whereas I think if you stick to one thing, whatever it is, I think it can help you feel like you're progressing. So I would recommend finding a teacher that you like online, doing a course. I'm offering a course quite soon, so you could come along and do that. Or there's a free stuff online as well. I haven't tried it, so I can't recommend it, but there could be some really good stuff out there. So do some investigation, or download the app and try a meditation. And we're going to do one today, so you'll get a chance to try it out if you haven't done it before. So that's one way of practicing. And the other way of practicing, which I find really useful, which is why I brought in the ice cream story, is the informal practice. So mindfulness is, it's great to sit on a cushion and practice, and that can have huge benefits. But really the practice is in daily life. So the practice is about being present with all our moments. Now, obviously, it's not possible to do that all the time. And I remember listening to John Kabat-Zinn give a talk when he said he thinks he only started really being present in his daily life all the time after 30 years of practice. So, and he's got about 50 years behind him now. So I've got a long way to go too. But it made me feel a bit better about all those moments that I spend on automatic pilot. So, again, we can't fail at this. We can just practice. That's it. We just practice.
And that word practice.
Yeah, that word exactly. Yeah. So one of the great things about the course is that I teach is that we bring in a lot of informal practice, and the point of the informal practice is it then allows us to remember, to be more mindful more of the time, and then this starts to become a habit. Yeah, so it's as if we were going to the gym to work our muscles, and there's this mindfulness muscle we have in the brain, and the more we exercise it, the easier it is for us to remember to be more mindful in more of our moments, and that has numerous benefits for anyone. So really, that's why we do so much. Why I think this way of teaching mindfulness, sorry, Paul, is so great. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Sorry, I interrupted. I was going to say that is what are the actual tangible benefits if someone hasn't meditated before, they haven't explored mindfulness, and they begin a practice? What differences typically might they see in their lives?
Okay, so I think especially if one is stressed, I think they would see a reduction in stress quite quickly. Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the greatest benefits that mindfulness has had. So one of the biggest reasons we suffer from stress is this spending a lot of time thinking in the mind, thinking about our problems, and this usually raises our stress levels. And mindfulness brings us back into the body, into our actual bodily experience, and it's sort of almost like it cuts this connection we have in the head, and we literally sort of bypass it, move into the body, and this lowers our stress levels. Yeah. So every time we sort of come out of the thinking brain, the thinking mind, and come into the body, we are literally cutting off our automatic pilot stress level that we've created, and we are coming back into the body, and therefore we're coming back into being, and we're coming back into our parasympathetic nervous system. Yeah, so we have this very intelligent nervous system that is very useful, but if we get stuck in the stress side of it, we get caught in a sort of vicious circle, a loop of stress. And what mindfulness does is it cuts that loop, that vicious circle, and it brings us out of the stress and into the relaxation response in the body. And so we practice that again and again and again repeatedly, so that whereby our stress levels gradually start to reduce. So I would say that's one of the principal benefits of mindfulness practice. Other benefits are, I think it can help a lot with chronic pain. So a lot of the time with pain, you may suffer from chronic pain. Yeah, lots and lots and lots of people do. Some of it is diagnosed and needs painkillers, and some of it isn't. So a lot of back pain is not really diagnosed as anything, and people have this non-specific back pain and just live with it. And so mindfulness won't necessarily get rid of the pain, like it won't get rid of whatever has stressed us out. Yeah, but mindfulness is very much about moving towards what's causing us difficulty. So if it's pain, we practice moving towards it and being with it in a more relaxed, a sort of calm way rather than a worried way. So a lot of the time when there's pain, we tense up against it in the body. it's pain, we don't like it, we tense up against it, and actually that increases our pain levels. So mindfulness is about changing that relationship to the pain, and therefore we often relax a lot of the tension around the pain that we've built up, and actually it can lower our pain levels quite dramatically. So I'd say those are some of the really sort of larger benefits. But I think generally there's so many benefits. So for me, it helped a lot with insomnia. So I started being able to sleep much better. Now I sleep 9 hours a
Ooh,
practice a lot in when we do a course as a group, is we practice being with the pleasant things in life. So it's not just about the stress and the difficulties, but it's also about being with what's pleasant and actually making the most of all of our moments. So we start to appreciate more the sun on the face, the sound of our children, the hug of our partner, an ice cream, whatever it is. And we start to drink in our moments. And there's some great quote out there that says that life is made of all the little moments. So we think it's the big things, but actually it's all the little moments that make up our life. And we learn in mindfulness, we practice enjoying those moments and feeling them and having a sensory experience of them without grabbing onto them and that they have to last forever. When we have mindfulness, we also learn to let them go, come and go naturally. So I think that's another one of the things that I really appreciate and love from my practice, is this ability to really enjoy all these tiny moments of life, and the warmth of a cup of tea, just the sound of the bird song, these really small moments that when you're on automatic pilot, they pass you by completely. You don't have time to notice them. And so the brain is wired to focus on the negative and the difficult. And we're wired up that way. We've evolved that way because of where we evolved from and how we evolved. And so we're wired up to look at the negative. And actually, it's also possible for us to bring that back into balance. And even when we're having a difficult time, it's also possible to learn this skill, which helps us to appreciate what is pleasant in our experience as well. We might be having the worst moment of our life, but there is also something pleasant happening at that moment too. And so mindfulness teaches us about how to realize that and how to practice with it. But the benefits are endless. I mean, the studies out there are endless now for the benefits of mindfulness. But on a sort of more personal level, I think for me, it has, I think being able to, learning how to listen to other people has been a huge skill that I learned through mindfulness, and really listening and being present for another person. As I said, enjoying all the small moments of life. And I think, learning how to let go of and not sort of hold on to what I want so tightly, and also just that sort of learning not to resist what's difficult so much and allowing life to flow. I think that's, for me personally, what I sort of get out of it the most.
Wonderful. Sign me up. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I totally endorse all the things you said there, Jackie. And yeah, I would say because of all those benefits you've talked about, for me, it also facilitates better relationships, more positive relationships, more loving relationships, more compassion, more kindness. And I think it's connected to what you said about listening and being present and accepting all of that stuff. And that negativity bias you talked about can really flare up in relationships when we have a button being pressed, and use mindfulness in those moments to just breathe and say, okay, this is reality. This is what's going on now. I'm going to label it good or bad. And what can I bring to this relationship, to this situation? It might be a flashpoint to actually bring it down and approach it with mindfulness, compassion, and love.
Sounds good. Yes. Yes. So I think you brought up the word compassion there. So it's a very important part of mindfulness. I think mindfulness wouldn't be mindfulness without this sort of idea of, or this part of it, which is the kindness or compassion that is such an integral part of it. It would just be concentration. So there is an element of mindfulness that is infused with kindness, and it's a thread that runs through the course. But yes, it's interesting because I remember when one teacher training I went on, when they were talking about the US military having mindfulness training, and everyone was a bit shocked and this is sort of using something like this for in a way that sort of for some people didn't like. But I think, that's a really important part of it, is that you can learn to meditate and concentrate and focus and be present. But there's a sort of heart element to mindfulness, which is so important. So in Sanskrit, the word for heart and for mind is chitta. And in the Western dialects or languages, we separate heart and mind. And in Sanskrit, there's one word for heart and mind, which is chitta, which means heart-mind or mind-heart. And I love that. I love that the fact that in that language, in that ancient language, you can't separate them. They're not separable. There's this great website called the Heart Math Institute. I don't know if you know it, Paul. It's really interesting, and they sort of, there's lots of research going on into the heart and into the connections between the heart and the mind and the energy fields around us and our own energy fields and the energy fields of others. And I think I personally, for me, I can't separate them. My thoughts are my thoughts, but they're not separate from my heart and my body. But we have this tendency in the West to separate the mind, and we're very intellectual, or we're not. But actually, we're really just this flow of sort of different energies moving around, and some of them have come out as mental events, thoughts, and some of them come out as emotions, feelings. Sometimes they come out as other kinds of energies. Sometimes they're sensations in our bodies. So, yeah, I think I think that this sense of the heart as such an important part of mindfulness practice. Whether you call it compassion or empathy or kindness, I call it the heart because that's what I connect to best.
Yeah, and I like the fact that heart and mind is the same word in Sanskrit. Also, this reminds me of Native American Indian culture, and what I say is that I hope I've got this right. The gut is mind number one, the heart is mind number two, and this thing is mind number three. So they rely on their instincts and their hearts, that kind of loving compassion, and this thing that we have, intuition, that we all and sometimes listen to and sometimes don't. But we're generally dominated by this thing in here, and we overthink, which isn't terribly helpful most of the time, I would suggest.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Good. So to kind of bring things to a close before you do your mindfulness practice for us, a key word for me, I suppose, in all of this kind of holistic stuff, that self-care stuff, self-compassion and kindness, is balance. you said earlier, Jackie, that when you first started practicing, you did half an hour twice a day, and that cleared your mind, and you afforded yourself that space to maintain that balance in your life with mental health, emotional resilience, and all of the other stuff that brought for you. And I'm thinking back to what you were saying at the beginning about yoga, and I'm no expert in yoga at all, but so correct me if I'm wrong, but the mindfulness is a core aspect of yoga, and yoga in itself is all about balance. The chakras, getting in touch with the spiritual element of it as well, not just doing some poses for exercise and flexibility, which again in the West a lot of people do. So could you perhaps say something around how mindfulness and yoga can go together to facilitate well-being, balance, kind of daily practice?
Yeah, sure. So, so just to say to start, I think especially thinking about the time we're in, I've connected with all these different people around the world. Some I know, some I don't know, some old friends. People are living in really different situations and circumstances, and some of them are very difficult. So I spoke to a friend this morning in a work meeting who is at home, working full time, studying, and starting to run some mindfulness teacher training as well in Russia. And I'm lost my job, and I'm in a place where I feel like I'm on a retreat. So that just gives you an example of real sort of extremes of what we're living. My sister's a nurse, so she's going back to work after being ill with the virus. She'll be probably on the front line. I'm not sure. So people are living in really different circumstances, and I just want to acknowledge that first. Some are finding this much tougher than others. But I think whatever your personal circumstances are at this moment, whether you have done mindfulness and yoga before or you would just like to try them out, I do really think they can be of benefit in a time like this. And I think personally, I have tried to take the attitude that it is an opportunity to be with oneself, with what is. And I think in this, a lot of the West especially, that we live very, very busy lives as if we were sort of running on a treadmill. And sometimes it seems like a little bit of an escape from what's really going on in ourselves. And mindfulness and yoga are very deep, they originally come from very deep spiritual practices.
Ooh. Have we lost Jackie? Can you hear us, Jackie? I think we may have lost her. Let's give it a minute and see if Jackie comes back. Okay. I think what we will do is remove Jackie from the studio for a moment, and I will message her and see if she can reconnect somehow. Give me a moment. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Do a little dance or something. Jackie, could you connect again, please? There we go. Right, in the meantime, folks, I'm going to do a bit of sales patter. So yeah, really excited that I can now deliver some mental health first aid courses again, yay, online via Zoom. So yeah, it's Mental Health First Aid England, official courses through my company Pathlight Limited, and I can offer the half-day Mental Health Aware course. And if you are interested in doing that, then do send me a message or email me at that address there, info@pathlights.org.uk, The first one is going to be a week on Friday, which is the 17th of April, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. and a heavily discounted price of £75 rather than the recommended retail price of £125. That's a saving of at least £49.99, if not £50. And hello, Sean. Good to see that you're with us today. So yeah, come along. It's a great course. You learn all about lots of mental health issues: anxiety, depression, psychosis, suicide, self-harm, and more. It gives you a really good grounding in how to spot the signs of mental ill health, also how to support people, whether it's in your workplace or friends, family, even someone in the street, how to start that initial conversation, which is pretty tricky. If you don't have the skills, the language, the confidence to do that, it will give you a really good grounding. Clearly, it's not as detailed as the 2-day course, but there's still plenty in there. And if you've only got half a day to spare and you've got Zoom on a computer or a smartphone, you can join us. So just send me a message either on Facebook, on here, an email to info@pathlight.org.uk. Let me know if you are interested. And we have a comment. I can recommend this, having done MHFA with you, Paul. Thank you very much. I didn't type that myself, folks. I don't know who it was because it's just coming up as Facebook user. But that's a recommendation from somebody who isn't me, honestly. And just right on cue.
I'm receiving the signal, the word signal.
Hi, sorry about that. We lost connection.
Maybe Spain's running out of internet, but never mind. We've got you back.
We're in the mountains, so the connection went. It happens some of the time. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, all good. Thank you. So I think midstream there. Oh, it's Rachel. Hello, Rachel. Yes. Yes, it was lovely to have you on the course, Rachel.
I'm going to go back upstairs.
Okay.
So I'm somewhere quiet, and I hope it doesn't happen again. I'm sorry about that.
Don't worry. We are at the mercy of technology, and we can practice mindfulness here and just act.
Yes. I did mindful panicking.
Whilst we're getting back settled again, I want to reflect something back to you, Jackie, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
So we met 8 years ago, just over 8 years ago.
Yeah.
I've noticed recently from having chatted with you over the past month or so is that you speak differently. You present.
Really?
That's how I perceive you anyway. And yeah, I think it's a great advert for mindfulness because you seem really calm. The way you speak is mindful in itself, enunciating the words, the pace of your speech, and you come across as being very thoughtful in choosing your words. So just thought I'd reflect that back.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely. Really kind.
I'm just reflecting what I see.
Thank you. It's lovely to hear.
Good. Okay. So, was there a point that you wanted to continue making, or do you want to kind of go into the mindfulness practice at this stage?
I think I was just trying to say that whatever your situation is, and it may be difficult, and I think I've come across a lot of people struggling with being in confinement, perhaps alone, perhaps with family, perhaps with friends. And I think for me, I'm trying to see it as an opportunity to be with myself. And I think mindfulness and yoga are tools to help us do that, because in a way we have no choice. And it's this time to maybe, unless you're obviously working and looking after kids and you're very busy, but if you're not, and even if you are, taking this time to be. So taking this time to remember to be a human being. And in a way, it's an opportunity for us all to do this. And it could be beneficial on so many levels, so on a personal level, but also on a global level, as we perhaps start to look at the way we run our communities and our societies and our schools and our businesses and all sorts of things that may change after this. And this sort of learning to be with oneself is actually, for me, the essence, the key to moving towards a healthier society. So I do, for me, see this as a really wonderful opportunity to use these tools and perhaps practice them. So, you know, whether it's yoga, whether it's mindfulness, whether it's something else, any kind of practice which slows us down and allows us to be with ourselves in a calm way, with our breath, with a little bit of movement, with a cup of tea, you know, whatever it is. Tai Chi is brilliant, Qigong is brilliant. All these kinds of practices are just fantastic ways to be with ourselves. If you already do it, fantastic. If you don't, yeah, why not give it a try?
Lovely, thank you. I'm reminded of my previous company. We used to teach mindfulness to families, so children and their parents together. And I remember one of the sessions we did was with some raisins. You may have come across this before. But it is kind of mindful experience, a bit like the ice cream you were talking about earlier. Ice cream, because you were eating it mindfully. What we did with the group was hand round a raisin each, and we had to examine it, looking at all the little crevices and the nooks and crannies, and then we would smell it and turn it over and feel it before putting it into our mouth, not actually chewing it, just feeling it, moving it around our mouth, and then very slowly starting to chew it and making it last. And people, wow, this is a taste sensation. It's a sense sensation, using all of those senses. Just that very simple practice, a really interesting gateway for people to go, wow, well, if that works for raisins, then that could work in other aspects of my life. Walking around, smelling the flowers, noticing the nature, which is a great opportunity to do that in this situation where it's so much more peaceful. And we're hearing the birds and we're smelling the roses, hopefully. Great. Okay.
Yeah, and can I just add to that, Paul, that, you know, that I don't want to, I mean, I totally agree with you, but, you know, we don't want to sort of brush over the suffering that's going on, the fear, the worries that people have, but it can really help to manage that, all of that. Those, you know, I've had a lot of fear and worry come up about my family in England, my work situation, my future, other people's futures, my mother's health, all sorts of things. And I'm not, you know, I think it's really important to acknowledge that that's there, then that these practices can just help us to manage them. I don't think they're going to go away, and not anytime soon, but it's to manage them so that they don't overwhelm us. Yeah, because we've got to all get through this somehow. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, thank you. Excellent point. Bring us back down to earth there instead of my head. Everything's wonderful.
It can be like that, absolutely. It has that element to it as well.
Great. So somebody's saying, hello, mindfulness time. Mindfulness is wonderful. Excellent. And it is mindfulness time. So are you happy at this stage, Jackie, to go ahead and make a session for us?
Absolutely, yes. Okay. So we're going to do how long have I got? How long, Paul, should this be, do you think?
10 minutes, something like
10
that.
minutes, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to do a 10-minute sitting practice. So when I say sitting practice, if you are at home and you prefer to lie down because it's more comfortable, that's absolutely fine. The main reason for sitting is to not fall asleep. But otherwise, any position where you can be still. Yeah, so we're going to practice also being still and not moving. If you need to move because you're uncomfortable, then move, by all means move. But sometimes it can just be interesting to observe our wish to move. Okay. So Most people practice with their eyes closed, but you can leave your eyes open. If you decide to keep your eyes open, perhaps just choose something in front of you to look at, so you're not looking around the room. And I'm going to guide you through this practice. So if you've never done it before, then just follow the guidance. That's all you need to do. But before we start, we're going to set an intention. So before we start practice, we're going to set an intention for ourselves. And our intention is to step out of our automatic pilot, our busy mind, and come into the body, come into our present experience through the body and through the breath. So we're going to be placing our attention in this practice on the sensations in the body and the sensation of the breath in the body. And I'm going to invite you to bring to mind an attitude that we can cultivate in this practice. So one of the attitudes is going to be curiosity. So we're going to practice being curious about our experience. So what is actually happening? As if we were a 6-year-old child and we were doing this for the first time and we had no idea what it was. And then we're going to also bring to the practice an attitude of kindness. So we want to infuse our practice, our breath, our awareness, our consciousness with kindness. So just finding your seat. So if you're sitting, inviting you to find a way to allow the spine to be upright and alert, but also comfortable. So you may need to rest it on the back of a chair or on a cushion, or you may find that you can allow the spine to be unsupported for this time. And both feet firmly on the ground without crossing the legs. The hands can be gently resting on our laps, perhaps folded if that's more comfortable for you. And so just starting now, we will start bringing our attention into the body. So we're going to be placing our attention, our awareness, into the body seated in the chair or perhaps on a cushion, perhaps lying down. And so just noticing firstly the contact between the body and the seat you're on, or perhaps the floor. And see if you can just notice the points of contact with the ground or with the chair. So entering through the sense of touch. And you may notice that these points of contact feel warm. And you might notice the texture of the chair or the floor or the cushion against the body. And you may also have noticed that your mind has wandered off and started thinking about other things. And so that's absolutely perfectly normal. It's what the mind does, it thinks. And all we're going to do in this 10-minute practice is to remind the mind to bring its attention back to the body. And the way we're going to do this is with a sense of kindness. As if the mind were like a puppy that we were training. And we were training the mind to pay attention, training our puppy mind. And as you would with a puppy, you would remind it, and you would do it in a kind way. Bringing the mind back to the sense of contact with the chair and with the ground. And now taking the attention down to the soles of the feet. And feeling the feet in contact with the ground. And so rooting and grounding ourselves down into the earth. And at any time in this practice, we feel anxious or in pain or a particular difficulty which is too much, we can always ground down through our feet into the floor at any moment, bringing us back into the present, our connection with the earth as it supports us in our practice. And now gradually allowing your attention to widen to the whole of the body again, seated or lying down. Noticing how the body feels. So perhaps there is pain or a pleasant feeling in the body, perhaps in the legs or the back, the shoulders or the neck. And just noticing body sensations, perhaps pleasant, perhaps unpleasant. And we just practice noticing them, just for a few moments. Perhaps if there is tightness in the shoulders or the back or a pain, you could even practice moving towards it in a kindly way, just for a few moments. Always knowing we can bring our attention back to the feet on the floor at any moment if we need to. Noticing how our mind may wander off, thinking about something else. And we gently and kindly bring it back to the body again and again. Now inviting you to move the attention onto the breath in the body. So finding the place in the body where you most feel your breath. And you could even put a hand in that place, if you wish. So perhaps the belly, perhaps the chest. Or it may be you feel the breath more in the throat or in the nose. So wherever it is, placing the attention and noticing the body as it breathes. The breath entering and leaving the body. And the body moving as the lungs fill and empty with air. Every time the mind wanders off, we bring it back to the breath again. Becoming curious about our breath. So no particular way to breathe. There's no right or wrong way to do this. We're just observing the process of breathing in the body. We may find that an emotion comes up as part of our experience. And we can notice this emotion and where it is in the body. What it feels like. And then gently come back to the breath again. Resting the awareness at this point of where you feel the breath. And just noticing the rhythm, the flow, the movement. And now gently we're starting to widen our awareness again, becoming aware of the breath and the whole of the body now. The body sitting in the chair, lying on the ground, supported by the earth. Now gently starting to widen further to become aware of thoughts. Noticing thoughts arrive and then they leave. Widening further to become aware of emotions that may or may not be present. And widening further now out into the space you're in, becoming aware of sounds in the room that you're in, the sound of my voice, the space we're sharing together here, perhaps the space you share with others at this time, perhaps a sense of the street you live in, the wider community, the shared experience at this time on a global level. This idea of shared humanity, we can perhaps move into this from the heart. Perhaps a feeling of gratitude that we are here and safe and well. And as we exhale now, coming back down to the ground through the feet, rooting and grounding ourselves into the earth. As we bring this practice to a close. Whenever you're ready, just gently starting to move the body, perhaps taking the time to stretch if you wish. And when you're ready, opening the eyes.
Lovely. Thank you, Jackie.
Pleasure. Very great pleasure. Thank you too.
So, I wonder how that was for you, people who are watching. Feel free to add a comment. Let us know how that was for you, whether you're watching live or watching the record back later. So, yeah, much appreciated for your time and expertise there, and for guiding the meditation as well. Thank you, Jackie Albert.
My pleasure. Can I just say that I've been teaching some yoga online on Zoom. I've been doing it in Spanish, but due to your invitation, also I have lots of friends still in England. I was thinking of offering a session in English. So if I give you that information, and then if anybody wants to come along and do a session with me, I'm offering it for free with a recommended donation of €5 or £5, depending on where you live. But that donation isn't necessary at all. It's just a recommendation if it's possible. So that's one thing I wanted to just mention. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, Paul, was that I'm starting my next online mindfulness-based stress reduction course at the beginning of May, Monday evenings from 5:30 till 8 p.m. So English time, that will be from 4:30. Spanish time is an hour ahead, an hour behind. So if anyone is interested or would like to find out more about it, then please just get in touch with me, and I will send. Paul has my details, and I will send him a link to the course information. So you can send that on, Paul, if you would like, if anyone's interested. Okay.
Thank you. Maybe you could put it as a comment underneath the video.
Yeah. Okay, sure. I'll do that later.
And we've got the, if you look at the little thing going across the ticker at the bottom of the screen, folks, some of Jackie's contact details there. And some nice comments coming in. Thank you, with a smiley face. Very soothing. Thank you. Mindfulness is wonderful. Yes, it is. Great. So, is there anything else, Jackie, that you feel we've missed? Anything else you want to say before we close?
No, I think that's it for me.
Great. Well,
just have a good evening, really.
Yeah. And yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Yeah, we'll put a link to contact you as regards your online courses, which sound good. And yeah, go well.
You too. Thank you very much.
Marvellous. That was lovely. So yeah, what we're going to do before we finish, I'm going to tell you, please can you keep sharing the link to this group so more people can benefit from the wonderful guests like Jackie. We've got lots more stuff coming up as well, plus our regular kind of check-ins, support sessions, Zooms, Man Tuesday, all that stuff. So yeah, pass this on far and wide. Pathlight Thrive Hive on Facebook, and we can grow this supportive community. It's great that you guys are interacting as well, so thank you for that. Also, I'm going to repeat this mental health aware course. It's an official Mental Health First Aid England half-day course, Friday of next week, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m, £75. Send me a message on Facebook or info@pathlight.org.uk if you'd like to join. And what else do I need to tell you about? I think that's pretty much it. I think we're going to finish on a song, because I've not done a song for a while. Not me personally, but this one's going to be Jake Fletcher. And yeah, he's a friend of mine, very talented. And he released his debut album. When was it? It was round about late December last year. Yeah, I went to the album launch party. I think it was New Year's Eve. So yeah, that must have been back end of December he launched that. So this song is pretty political, and I don't want to get political really, but the message here is that power never changes. And as Jackie was saying earlier, this is a great opportunity for us all to change. And maybe if enough of us embrace the potential opportunities that we have around shifts of consciousness, becoming more mindful, more kind, more compassionate, less greedy, and all that type of capitalistic stuff, then maybe the powers that be will listen as well. So this is Power Never Changes. Jake Fletcher. Look him up on Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, all those places, and enjoy this tune and enjoy the rest of your evening.
As I see the country changing, as I see it slowly slip into disrepair. For the rich, the poor don't matter anymore. When the line between us separates and gets bigger, I just despair. It never changes. Forever optimist, amendments will occur. Well, it never changes. How do people like us change the wind, change the air? As we move through different stages, we're using fear as a weapon in the Bible Belt times, and then we're blaming different races when the common word that's measured is the greatest of nouns. And it never changes. And the lines they cross, they all become a blur. Well, it never changes. How do people like us change the wind, change the air? Yeah, I believe in love like you're supposed to. Yeah, I believe in love. So take a box and hope it pays off at the end of the day. Hope's all that you've got. It never changes. Distractions tactics while they touch you unaware. Yeah. It never changes. How do people like us change the wind, change the air? It never changes. Oh, criminals like George Bush and blood. It never changes. How do people like us change the wind, change the air? Change the air.
Smashing. Oh, I'm on telly. Hope you enjoyed that, folks. Tomorrow, 6:30, we've got Janet Burgess coming in. She is a energy healer. She does shamanic work. She's also a Hoffman process facilitator, which is a depth process, personal development stuff. So really interesting. It's going to be a great chat. So do come along tomorrow, 6:30. What else are you going to do on a Friday night? You're not going down the pub, are you? So make sure you don't miss it, unless you've got something more important to do, in which case miss it and watch it back later. All right, have a good evening, folks. Oh, got some comments. That was great. Lost connection through the mindfulness practice, but didn't realise until I had 10 minutes had passed. Thank you. You're welcome. And there's the link to the course there from Jackie as well. Great stuff. Thank you, folks. See you tomorrow. Have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.